think this video is going to be pretty long in the end, and so I'm going to put this summary in the front. So in this video we're going to go over the third-person system from Diaz Games, take an in-depth look and try to add our own abilities and animations onto the system using the system. And I'm going to go through the process, kind of the whole lengthy process as I figure it out, and for better or for worse. So there's going to be a lot of me stumbling and fumbling through everything, but that's kind of part of the learning process. If you don't want to watch that and you'd rather have a summary, a shorter kind of summary video that is more like a traditional tutorial that gets straight to the working code, then let me know in the comments. So something I always take forever to pick is a third-person controller. It's difficult, and I guess not for obvious reasons. There's probably a bunch of different ways to do it, and none of the options on the asset store are generally going to be perfect for it for various reasons. So what I want to do is a survey of third-person systems, because I do have a few of them. So I kind of want to go over some of them and talk about the reasons why I like or don't like, or etc. A survey of third-person systems. And so the first one that I want to talk about here is called Third Person System from Diaz Games. And almost the first thing to note is that it's only $10. Now it is just a basic locomotion part. One reason that I was interested in this one, if we look at the rest of what he has here, he's got this climbing system, which is a big contrast in price at $60, and a few other things, shooter system, footstep system to go with it, but the basic third-person system is pretty inexpensive at only $10, and I'm hoping that the base system will be good enough that I can just add my own features, because I don't really need a shooter. Probably going to be focusing on this particular one for the Heretic 2 remake idea. So I don't need a shooter. I do need a footstep system, although I feel like I can probably handle that on my own. I'm not sure about $15. It's odd, and maybe that's because of the Foot IK, but I guess it's odd to me that it's more than the base system even. $10 is probably not the right price for this. Maybe it should be free. There are others which I'll do in later videos, but there are others that have the basic. There are quite a few free for the basic locomotion piece of it. The climbing system is pretty cool, and I'm sure that's why it's $60, because he's gone into a lot of work of being able to not only climb ladders, but climb ledges and jump between ledges and hang and all that sort of stuff, which I do kind of need for the Heretic 2 system. But again, I don't really want to spend $60. I was fine to spend $10. Alright, so let's take a look at this package now that I've got it. Okay, so here we are in the demo scene that it comes with. Probably the first thing that we'll do, let's just give that a play and see what it's like here. Got some instructions, WASD to move. It's got the kind of turn and play style. Hold shift to walk. Space to jump. Woohoo! It's got a crouch, which is something. So you can press C to crouch. You have to hold that down, and then you can walk. After I'm under here, I don't have to hold it down anymore. I can roll. Oops, I rolled out. I can't climb up because I don't have the climbing system. Some damage areas, so it's got a health system involved. Just some simple trigger volumes, I assume. They're sending some kind of health events. Shift is to walk, jump. I can roll even if I'm not crouched. Crouch. 45.1 degree rampage. Or I guess that's probably not rampage, it's rampage. Because this is some major rampage here. This one is not walkable. So yeah, I can't do that angle. Can't crawl up it. I can roll up it though. Tricky. Cheat the system. 45 degree rampage. Walkable. Walking a little slower, but not again if I roll. Kind of works. And 35 degree rampage is totally walkable. There's no stairs. I wonder if that's sectioned off for the foot system. Okay. So it's got a little health bar. Alright, so taking a look at the scene, got these places. So he's the type of person that uses these placeholder things. There's a completely empty one. Which is kind of weird. Okay. Oh, I see. It's a line and then an empty line and then the next header. I think there's definitely a better way to do that, but this is just the demo scene. So, default avatar. It's got the ragdoll set up and a collider. The animator, rigid body, audio source, gas collider. Okay, so it's got editor enhancements, so custom editors written to make these things blue, so that's kind of appealing. I think these white boxes are actually because I'm on the Unity beta version, and I don't know if that's like something permanent. The reason I'm using the beta version is that they greatly improve the fonts and the UI for the free personal edition skin. So we've got the different abilities. So the way this thing is set up, we've got main controller. It's set to be a modular thing. So the main controller handles ground checking and I guess the core of the system, and then it's designed that you add these other components, so everything's split into multiple components, which is good. We don't have large bloated classes, and you can pick and choose some things. I imagine this animator manager though is probably required, but maybe not. Maybe you can move around without it. I don't need to mess with that. There's the health manager, keeping track of our health system, obviously. Input manager, taking care of mapping to the Unity input manager. I think that's pretty straightforward, and maybe with the Unity input manager script, maybe that makes it easy to swap out for a different input manager. Then we have different things. So locomotion, the ability to walk around, jump, fall, roll, crouch, all separate abilities. It has a matching camera system, so it's got the camera controller, which uses the pivot based camera instead of putting the camera directly on the camera itself, like some of them do, so that you can rotate the pivot rather than messing with the camera. And I think it makes it easier to parent different cameras on here. Maybe it's just better for the rotating and moving around. It's got different types of updates and move speeds and various configurations, input for the orbiting behavior, collision detection, that's what this protection from clip is, and then it has this camera data system, which I believe is using like scriptable objects that track the offset and the field of view. And the reason for that is so you can change it for each of these abilities. So here's this camera settings. When you are crouching, then it's going to use this camera data, which I assume that these are just displaying the crouch camera. 0.75, 0.75, minus 2, and 60. Yeah, probably just displaying. Maybe you can edit it directly in there. That's a good question. Could be that you can. Maybe that's a scriptable object feature. I'm sure this is a scriptable object. So let me just show that. So when I press C for crouch, it moves the camera closer in for crouching. Which is kind of cool. So I assume that you could have similar things. Does it do that for roll? It doesn't do anything for roll or jump. You could have a similar thing for like probably uses in the shooting system. When you're aiming, you can move the camera slightly to the side, and so you don't have to aim through the character, kind of thing. And then another thing, just to note while we're here, if we look at this capsule, when I crouch, it shrinks the capsule for collision, so that's kind of cool. And that it's right here, ability settings, changes the physics material, has some obstacle mask, which I believe in crouch is just to indicate things that you have to crouch. I think it can make you auto crouch if you bump into something that like in the level here. This object, which I'm sure is probably on the default layer, yeah, roof, I think. So let me play again and see if I can jump. Now I'm not pressing, yeah, I didn't press C. I just kind of moved around like I was trying to go in here. It doesn't if I walk straight up, but if I'm facing it and then I hit the button again to move, not the crouch button, it's automatically crouching under here. I think that has to do with the obstacle mask. We can look at the code a little bit later. And then each ability has this abilities to ignore. So it works as a state priority system. When you are in the crouch ability, you ignore the locomotion ability so that you don't get taken out of the crouch ability prematurely. It's kind of tricky to wrap your head around, and then at the base, it's like it's a state machine, I guess. It's a finite state machine, really. On enter ability, event, on exit ability, and then it has some information about animation. So one thing that I noticed about this is the jumping. So let me press play again. And when I'm running here, I'm always running, and then I jump, it kind of does this little hop. And when I'm standing in place, it does a pretty weak little hop, although in real life that's probably about how high I can jump. Anyway, so if I see over here there's this jump ability, so let's just crank that up to 20 and see what happens. So now standing still, that doesn't change. Moving, that's much higher. Probably a little too high. Crazy jumping bean, but that could be fun. And definitely in the old school Heretic, he needs to be able to jump higher than he was. Probably not 20, but maybe half that. But I also need to be able to do standing jumps. And so it confuses me why this jump power doesn't have anything to do with my standing jumps, and it even so it has a stationary jump state error.jump in place. So I look at the animator, and that when there's a dot in the animator, so there's this state block state substate. It's a substate machine, yeah. So we go to error and then jump in place. Okay, it's got this animation, and that's why I can tell that's why it's happening, because this is using root motion. You can tell it's using root motion because the grid is moving down here in the animation when he's jumping. If it wasn't using root motion, then the grid wouldn't be moving. The model would just be making the jump motion, but not actually moving up. So it's using the root motion values, and this is pretty weak. I mean, that's just the kind of jump it is for a root motion. So I guess I would need to create a new animation or get a different one that jumped higher. But maybe we just need to tweak it. So let's go in here. This will be part of the survey, really, because how easy is it to tweak things and do what I want to do? I want to have a more powerful stationary jump. So let me go to the jump ability. Stationary jump state. We see that it has these serialized fields. It's got nice code, and that's one thing I want to say is this is like good, easy to read stuff. It's documented. It's got tooltips using serialized field and private things when appropriate. These, I guess, maybe you need to be able to affect the jump power of an ability from another ability. I don't know. Alright, so get enter state, try enter abilities. So we can enter the ability if jump button is pressed and we're on the ground, so that makes sense. on enter ability. So here, and I've kind of looked at this a little bit before, which is so if it seems like I am magically able to read the code, instantly translate, I have looked at it a little bit ahead of time to not be hopefully as boring. Okay, so here's what it is. It's saying if the input is so it's approximately 0. So if it's not 0, so basically, I guess if the relative input, if you're trying to move, you're doing a running jump, then it calls this do jump with the jump power. It rotates your character to face the direction of the input, which is commented here. Add some velocity in the direction of the jump, and then change the state parameters to allow jumping. I'm not really sure what the check ground distance exactly is for. And then setting is grounded to false. Probably just these affect the other abilities. Otherwise, if we're not moving, then else it's saying use the root motion and use vertical root motion. So right here, this tells me it's tied to that particular animation and using the root motion of that animation. We don't really have an option. So I think the way that I could immediately fix it is to make that optional. So what I would do, just add a variable here, private bool, and that will allow me to use the same velocity addition as the moving jump does. So I'll just call it use jump, use power jump. So we'll set the default to false. That sounds good. And we'll just do just jam it in here. Else if use power jump, then do jump power, and we still need to change these to allow jumping. So if we're not moving, do what we used to do, or if we are moving, do what we did before. Otherwise, if we have the override set, then let's just do the jump with the jump power and set the flags. Otherwise, do what we were doing even before that, which is to just use the root motion thing. So let's see if that works. I'll let this guy compile, and where did it put it? Ability settings. Did I not save it? Serialized field, private bool, use power jump. Equals false. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I didn't save it. Okay, now it's building. Jump. Use power jump. Alright, let's see if that works. No, the default is jump power 6. It doesn't look that much more. Let's go up to 15. Oh yeah. Doesn't obviously totally sync up with the animation because he's kind of like frogging in the air. That's the consequence of not using the root motion. but gets the job done. So now I'm able to do running jumps and my standing jump. 15 is probably still too high. Maybe try 10. That's a little better. See if that lets us get up here. Well, it does. I still need to, so I'll need to, in order to be able to pull up to things without the climbing system, either get the climbing system or set up my own. Looks like the collider's a little fat too, because he's not as close to the edge as I'd like. Alright, so that wasn't too bad, but the animation doesn't totally sync up. So I've also got this animation pack, the Explosive RPG Character Mecanum Animation Pack. It's pretty awesome. It has, as you can see here, over 1,000 different animations, all sorts of RPG animations, spells, bows, staffs, jumping, rolling, dodging, swords and shields, all that stuff. I'm sure that it has most of what I would need in order to get the Heretic 2 stuff, animations on point. So the next challenge really for the third person controller system is how easy is it for me to add in things from this animation pack or any other animation pack. There are a few others that I have and we can take a look at later, but that's really the test that I want to do is, can I get this into this third person system, or you know, even part of it, so that obviously it may take some work to more than clicking a button to get it going, but how easy is it for me to do that? Incidentally, this RPG character pack comes with a controller already that I guess you would call a third-person character controller. It's already set up with one, but we'll just have to go over that as a whole separate thing. As part of the third-person controller survey, we'll take a look at that one and why I'm not trying to use that one, or maybe I should. So let's take a look at the controls again for Heretic 2. So I'm just using the mouse to turn so the camera stays fixed behind, with a little bit of delay. I can never get in front of him, and the character turns and steps as I'm turning that part. I'm kind of sitting here in this idle state, just breathing, and I can whip out my staff, and that doesn't change that idle state, but he has that animation to pull out and then equip the staff. And then when we're running and backing up, there's flies randomly. Swipe, swipe, swipe. If I hold up and swipe, then it does that moves the whole time it's doing that animation. My standing jump goes pretty high. It puts both hands up in the air for some reason. And then running jump. Oh yeah, that's the pole vault. Want to have the pole out. And if I jump and hold, if I'm jumping forward, oh well, actually, let me. So if I switch to the spell, there's that where you kind of cast a spell. If I'm jumping forward and I hold down the jump key, it'll do this forward flip. If I press back and jump and hold the jump, it does a backflip. Or I can just jump without holding the jump and it jumps like that. And then if I push back and jump against the wall, it'll do this backflip that gets you a little bit extra height. And then I can jump on the barrel, and then I'm jumping up. You just have to be pushing forward and it pulls up there. And I can... what's the button? Q is for crouch. And when I try to move and I'm crouched, I always roll. And I can roll in all 4 directions. When I'm standing, if I double tap to the side, I roll, goes back. Double tap forward doesn't do anything. Double tap back doesn't do anything. There you have to hold the thing or be crouched. Also, if you sit here long enough, then it has some fun little extra idle animations, which maybe we'll get him to do one in a moment here. Oh, that's another thing. He goes into, I guess, what you'd call combat stance at this point. It's like ready for anything until you start moving again. If you hold down Shift, or you just go to the sneaking, no, maybe it's Control. Yeah, hold down Control. So I have this like sneaking, sort of, not really. This is a kind of a walking, sneaking animation, and that also prevents me from falling off the edge. And whatever that did that make me jump higher? I don't know what that blue stuff is. It's crazy. I think maybe I'm faster. Oh yeah, I'm faster. Totally. Shoom. Still can't jump higher, but I'm definitely faster. That's cool. But there was that animation. There's this little climb up animation. And so forth. Oh, that's weird. Can I roll through that? No. Why is there stairs and a wall? Maybe that's a secret. Anyway, so I think one of the first animations that we'll try to add, because that's pretty important, would be this one. Take out your staff, back and forth, still in the idle stance, and then maybe an attack. Okay, so here's where things I think start to get kind of tricky, at least for me. I look at the animator for the third person system. It's got one layer, just the base layer, and and it's got the substate machine of air. Otherwise we've got strafe, which is a blend tree, grounded, which is another blend tree, crouch, which is a blend tree, and roll, which is just an animation. If you look at the grounded blend tree, this is where all of the movement is. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Maybe like that. So, if you're not familiar with the blend trees, you have these different values that you can blend animations by. This one's a 2D blend tree, and you can tell because there's 2 parameters. It's using turn and forward, and these are the parameters over here that we have that are being set by the third person system when it gets input. So your forward, your vertical and horizontal inputs, and the amount you're turning. And you can just press play here. You can see when those are at 0, it's doing the idle animation, and then you can kind of move this thing around. This is changing the values on the grid, so I'm turning. This is changing the turn. This is changing the forward value, so it starts to goes to walking in a particular direction and all the way up to running. No backwards. Okay. Now, if we look at the one that comes with the RPG kit, here, this animation controller, it is obviously a lot more complicated, but there's a lot more animations. But it's using, I think, 2 different styles of setting up an animator. That's where I initially start to struggle. So this one obviously has a lot more parameters, tons of triggers, and the way that it's set up is using those parameters inside of this state machine. So these are state transitions. So it goes to relaxed, from relaxed to unarmed. There's no conditions for that one, so it's probably happening on more of a any state thing. So these, when they have the triangle ends, they're substate machines. So let's just look at the relaxed version to start with and try to get some kind of comparison. So it has a whole separate state machine for idle, and then inside here, when you're idle, it's got this idle animation separately, which I guess I don't necessarily need to replace. The entry has a few conditions. It's got one animator transition and one mono behavior transition. So the animator transition enters here when crouch is false. So when it comes from any state, this comes from the relaxed. It comes into the relaxed substate machine, I think, from any state when the weapon equals -1, and this instant switch trigger, which I'm not 100% sure what that does. So when it comes in to the entry point, it either goes here if crouch is false, or here crouch is true, to the idle crouch animation, which this one is kind of more like taking a knee. It's not really crouching in the same way as the other one. So I like the crouch of the other, which I think is probably a default Unity one. Unity mocap thing. Anyway, so it's got a lot of different, it's a completely different style of doing things. So, okay, let's go back up. So, I want to do this staff, because that's closest thing. So, let's say we have staff idle, has a whole state machine. Also, because there's the idle state or idle crouch, idle injured, idle alert. Yeah, looking around, ready to go. Could get a lot of fun animations. So when we have this staff idle, it's kind of holding the staff out. And arguably in Heretic 2 it was always that. And staff weapon switch. You can take it from your back, your hips. Let me close that. Back, your hips, from relaxed, unarmed, all these different states. There's almost too many things in here to get a hold of, which is one of the reasons I think why I don't end up using the other controller that it comes with. It's too complicated, but okay, so let's just say we're coming from unsheath, hips, relax. Is that what we want? Yeah, that's pretty much what it's doing in Heretic. We pull that out and then switch to the staff state. Okay, so the trickiness, I think, is, if I go back to this one from the third-person controller, is that I can, and maybe that's where I'll start, I can make the action to play an animation and pull the staff out, but after the staff is out, then I want to change my idle to something else, and this grounded is just a blend tree, and it's got the idle set up in it, so it's not like a particular state. So if I look at the locomotion on this, what is it doing? Animation. Yeah, so when you're in the locomotion ability state, it switches the animator to the grounded state, which means that it's running this, which is the blend tree. Transitions in there, you can uses root motion, and root motion multiplier. That would be interesting. I wonder if I can set that up for the jump that we did earlier instead, so that it would look more like it follows the animation better. I'll have to take a look at that. But anyway, the part that's catching me up here is that it's designed to enter grounded, which is a single blend tree. So I think my two options are to create a completely separate ability that says once I pull out my staff, then I need to enter not the locomotion state, but the, I'll just call it staff locomotion state, where I run a totally separate blend tree that I can make using the animations from the RPG pack. And that's kind of the difference, is that I guess all of this is, it's like only using a teeny bit of the animator, because you could also say that it transition. You could set a parameter in here. I could create a parameter called, like, I don't know, let's make an int and call it weapon stance, right? And we could say 0 is no weapon or unarmed, 1 is staff, 2 could be bow, something like that. Because there are bows in Heretic and other spells and staffs and things to use, so that might take slightly different animations. But then I don't know, using this system, so say I create staff locomotion, and then I would have to go to abilities to ignore and set a flag. So how do I ignore? How do I get back into locomotion? So the tricky part that I get hooked up on is, say I enter staff locomotion state, then how do I get back into the ungrounded? So do I tell it, I would have to tell it to ignore all of these other states, I guess, in the staff locomotion state, and then switch back and forth and keep track of it. It seems like the amount of abilities to ignore would kind of grow in such a way. Well, what if, another thing I'm thinking about, which I'm not sure if it's totally the way that this third-person controller would do it, would be, what if I created, instead of this being a single blend tree, what if it was a substate machine called grounded? So locomotion is still the ability that I want, but I want to take a look at this weapon stance. And if I create a substate machine, which I won't call grounded, but I'll just call it, for now, I'll just call it grounded 2. Oops. Grounded 2. So, if I were to copy this, go into grounded 2, paste it, so I have this grounded state, and then I could, let me just drag I need to make another blend tree for the staff state, but if I go down to the RPG staff, let's just take the idle for now and say this is a blend tree. So when I come in, so then the locomotion ability of third person system would always be going to this grounded 2. If I look here again, so I would put grounded 2 here. So then it always goes in here, and then I use this parameter, so I say I can't add transitions to the default, so I would have to maybe add an empty state or something. Maybe it would just, by default it goes there. So then make a transition to this one that will be technically the staff blend tree, and then I could say add a transition property that weapon stance equals, let's just say 1 is the staff. So when it comes into this state, grounded 2, would it do that right? Maybe I can find that out. So I think in order to do this, first to even see if this is if I'm headed in the right direction here, first I need to create the ability, a new ability to pull out the staff. So let me create a folder for myself here. Underscore all my stuff. It's a convention that I have taken from the Messy Coder. And we'll create another subfolder here. Scripts. And let's create a C# script, and we'll say equip staff ability. Okay, so my equip staff ability needs to inherit from the third person ability, I think it's called. Yeah, using Diaz Games third person system. Which I should really namespace my stuff to my own namespace, but I'm not going to do that for right now. Because I don't want to. Alright, so it needs to have the override of try to enter ability, which maybe I should be using actual Visual Studio. So it's a bool. So let's just copy the one out of Jump to make life easier. So to know whether or not I can enter the ability, let's say input manager dot get key. Does it have a key down? I have to look up the third-party system input manager. Left weapon button. We don't have to be grounded. Okay. We go to the definition of that. Input manager. Go to the unit input manager. Jump, walk, roll, crouch, drop, toggle weapon button. Okay. Let's just use that one for now. I mean, there'll be more than one weapon eventually, but we'll just use toggle weapon button for now, and I'll add more later. Toggle weapon button dot was pressed. Okay, so we need that try enter ability to get into our ability. We're just gonna say we press the toggle weapon button. Okay, so the other thing we need to do is put in something when we enter. So on enter ability, we'll just copy that from Jump also. What we want to do is set the weapon state when we enter the ability. So I think in the engine, or maybe we just do animator manager dot set float parameter, forward parameter. Do they really only have float? There's no int? Why? Okay, well, let's go look at the animator manager. Set float parameter. Animator set float. So let's see what happens. Public void set int parameter string parameter int value. Animator dot set int measure and parameter value. So making little changes to the main scripts, which generally isn't always a great idea, because if and when the author updates it, it'll override my changes and I'll have to keep track of it and all that. But for the sake of doing what I want to do, I'm just going to do that for now. Alright, so now in my ability, now I can set int parameter, and I called that weapon. What do I call that? Weapon stance. And we're saying 1 is the staff. Probably later I would move that to an enum so I don't have to remember which thing is which. Okay, so probably that will do what I want it to do. Yeah, I think there's some other things in the code that would be appropriate, like, do I already have the staff out? I don't need to enter the ability and do this again over and over again, and I can work on kind of fleshing that out later. But what I want to do is test and see if this will work. Okay, so to do that, I want to add the equip staff ability to the character. And that part's cool. It's because it inherits from the third person ability, it automatically gets a fancy blue thing. I don't know if we need a physical material. The animation that we want to do, enter state. Oh, so I need to add the equip staff animation to it. Staff, and let's we'll just say unsheath hips relax for now. So drag that on here. And let's just copy it. We could rename it, but we'll just copy it. Okay. So the animation that I want to play when I'm equipping the staff is this state. And finish this state on animation end. I don't know if this has root motion for unsheathing. No, I don't think it does. Okay. So, it's kind of annoying that it doesn't stay open. We won't use root motion, because I don't think we need it. We're not going to change the camera. Abilities to ignore. So, when we're equipping, we don't want to crouch or roll or move, I guess, fall or jump. I guess we'll ignore everything. I think that's what we want. Okay, and what my experiment is I was going to change this locomotion one to grounded 2, which has my my state parameter in there. So we enter this state, grounded 2, and if the weapon stance equals 1, it should play this staff idle, which I need to change to a blend tree, but so I'm just going to be idle the whole time once I do this. Otherwise it should hopefully run like normal. I don't know if I need an exit from this. Did this air one have it? No. Maybe it doesn't need it because we're manually jumping states. Okay. Oh, and then the final thing that I need to know is what is the key for toggle weapon? I saw that in the input manager, but it's not on here. Jump, walk, roll, drop, crouch, zoom, interact. Okay, so let's check project settings and input manager. Is there a toggle weapon? Toggle T. Alright, we'll take toggle. Let me double check the code then, I guess, which was the Unity input manager. It's public. Why is it not showing up on there? Toggle weapon button is an input button. Toggle is toggle. So it's set up, it's just not showing on the inspector. Maybe this custom editor is probably modifying it. Input manager inspector. If has weapon controller. What is has weapon controller? Interesting. Maybe this is something from the shooter part, but it's part of the code that I bought, so anyway, it looks like even though I can't set it in the inspector, I think it's still set up. It's hard coded to be toggle, so let's just let's see if I broke it. So I haven't pressed T. I can still run around. I'm on grounded. I jump, now I'm falling. That's strange. Why am I not exiting? Something's wrong. I broke something. Okay. What if I press T? Nope, that doesn't work. Okay. Let me stop that. Let's just set my grounded 2 to the default, I guess. Wait. Set state machine default state to grounded 2. Grounded 2 grounded. Okay. And then back in the inspector. Double checking here that locomotion is set to grounded 2. Okay. So alright. So if I press, I'm ungrounded, I can jump. Why am I getting stuck in the jump? That's so weird. Maybe that's something from just me modifying the jump script. Alright. Let's see what happens if I press T. Nothing. Okay. Oh, wait. My weapon stance is 1. I can see it. Wait a minute. Let me go back. Alright, yeah. My weapon stance is 0. I press T. My weapon stance is 1. It didn't play the animation though. Wonder why that is. Okay, clearly I've done something wrong, but I'm not really sure what. So now I can still move, but I get stuck like that. Jump in place. The animator is not going. It's not leaving that jump in place anymore. Basically what I did was I created an empty state to try and go to I tried to set a transition so it only goes here when weapon stance equals 0 and here when weapon stance equals 1, but it never goes there. I can press T to toggle, I can see the weapon stance turns to 1, but it doesn't leave that that state. Even if I add exit, oops, even if I add branches to exit the grounded state so that you'd think it checks again, but it doesn't. It has to be the default state, and even though this entry thing, it should take me here because grounded 2, but it's like what's actually happening is that this locomotion, even though it says enter state grounded 2, it's not actually doing that. Even when it said grounded, I don't think it's going to that state, maybe? I don't know. Alright, I think one key bit of troubleshooting here is looking at locomotion. Try enter ability. The only criteria for enter ability should be whether or not engine is grounded. So perhaps this somehow grounded is false, grounded is false. We should exit the ability if we're grounded and we're not using root motion. Otherwise, the standing jump is set to use root motion true. So when is it going to exit this? Finish on animation end true, so maybe it's supposed to be finishing when the animation ends, and then it should be exiting. But I don't see... how that works. Of course, before I changed it, it was working. But I guess that maybe that's because it was the default state. Why is it not checking if it's on the ground? Okay, so I figured out one part of my problem. I forgot to call the base on enter ability function in my ability, so that's why it was kind of dying in that sense. If we look at that real quick, the on enter ability, which is around here somewhere. Oh, come on. On enter ability, here it is. So it fires the event, sets the ability to active, calls set state on the enter state, which is that animation state, and then possibly updates the physics material based on that. I added this line here to debug what was happening because it's still not working. So if we look at the, I set the locomotion enter state grounded 2, and the grounded 2 enter state is supposed to have, it's this one here, where I have copied the grounded blend tree and used the transition parameter of weapon stance to use the staff idle. I think this state would work, but what I actually did was I moved it to this substate machine called staff. I have equip. I had to add an exit, or else it would also get stuck there. And I had to add it as well for the jumping stuff. That wasn't part of it, but I added this because when I changed my state away from grounded, it wouldn't leave the jump state anymore, which was strange. I mean, it makes sense, sort of. It would call jump in place, or jump, or falling, or whatever, and then it would just sit there because it wouldn't leave this section and go back to grounded. Even though the character hit the ground, I'm not sure what I'm missing yet. But so I added that console log and one of the debug log of what state is being entered. So it is going to grounded 2 like I asked it to. And then when I jump in place, it goes to jump in place. Oh, let me uncollapse these. Then back to grounded 2 when it lands, after it exits that animation. And then I press the staff equip. It plays that animation and goes back to grounded 2, but it never goes in there. I'll show you. So it's playing grounded, not grounded 2. That's because it's the default. If I jump in place, it exits and comes back to the default, even though it says enter state grounded 2. It doesn't actually seem to go there. Maybe I can't just set the state to a top level substate machine. Maybe that's the problem, because that's what I'm trying to do. But I can press T here and it switches my weapon stance, plays the animation, and you have to press it right when the grounded animation ends. Which is also not what I want. So what if I say set the default grounded to grounded? Because that wasn't working before, but that might be because... Okay, so now I can run, jump, back to that. Now if I press T, you see it's still, it doesn't come in here. Maybe if I make a transition to exit, I would stop playing mode because it gets weird. my thinking is if I go to exit, then it'll come back in here to the entry and hopefully hit this other pass, because I have specific conditions about weapon stance, so I don't understand why those aren't getting triggered. No. This is going straight through, even though weapon stance is 1. And it should say weapon stance equals 1 goes here. Otherwise, this one, weapon stance equals 0. So I don't know why that's not working. Now, the other option, of course, is to not try this substate machine. And I could do it a different way. I don't know why my default needs to be this, because it should put me in this grounded state. But maybe because of the looping. So if I set this transition back here, and then I set the default to here. So this is an empty one, so it's not going to do anything. That's the default action. It should all be based on setting the state here. So I go back to locomotion and I change this to just grounded for now. Then it's going to go to grounded. Oh, so this time it's working. Okay, so my state is playing grounded. And now if I jump, that part is actually working. So maybe it is that I can't do set state grounded 2 because it's a substate machine. Yeah. Okay, so that means that my other option that I can think of here is take the staff idle, copy it out of here. Let's just go to staff, paste it in here. For now, again, this needs to be a blend tree. And then I would have to change locomotion code, because what I need to do is when the weapon stance is 1, because my ability will change the weapon stance, so I can still store the state in here, but then once I've played the equip and I switch the weapon stance to 1, I need locomotion to still be going, but to use a different state. And so I need to modify the code so that when weapon stance is 1, I change the state from grounded to a different one. And that's using this get enter state. And the way I come up with this idea kind of is by, again, looking at the jump ability. They override get enter state, and if moving, then the state that they want to play is the stationary jump state. Otherwise, it's the one that's set by the base class, which is the one that's in the inspector, which is just jump, whatever, air.jump probably. Let's see, they have air.jump in place, so they create an ability specific state. So, okay. So let's just But I'm gonna do this, but I'm not really sure I like doing it because I don't want to change the locomotion. It's supposed to be, a staff, but I guess I would have to create. Otherwise, I would have to create staff locomotion ability, and then set up some complicated ignore states, I think, so that somehow everything could be ignored and it can enter that ignore locomotion, enter that state and enter it based off of that. I don't know which is better. So let's just try this one for now. There's the strafe state, so they're already kind of doing that. I don't know what that's about. It must be some other built-in part. Anyway, let's serialize field, private, string. Let's just call it staff state for now. Was it staff idle? I think. Staff idle? Yeah, staff dash idle. And then we're going to just do public override string get enter state, and then was it not public? Is that the problem? Where's the get enter state? Oh, come on. Yeah, okay. Oh, it's because I hadn't added the return yet. That's why the error was there. Okay. Get enter state, and then we're going to say if animator manager dot get we have set in parameters, but we don't have get end parameters. So I'm gonna have to modify the animator manager again, I guess, at least for now. It's just public void get int parameter string parameter. That's not void. It's an int. And then we're gonna return animator dot get int integer and parameter. Okay. So then we can say get int parameter weapon stance equals to 1. Then we return staff state. Otherwise, return base dot get enter state. Okay, so maybe that's gonna work. Let's see. Let it compile. go. We're gonna ground it and toggle the thing. Nope. Interstate staff idle. Why is the plane grounded? Oh, this grounded thing. Okay. So it's grounded. Staff equip. Interstate staff idle. Jump in place, staff idle. Jump falling, staff idle. So it's entering the state, but it's not playing it. Staff idle. Let's just call this staff dot idle, I guess, or we'll call it grounded. Staff dot grounded, because that will be the blend tree eventually. Okay, and then locomotion. Should be able to set this here. Staff dot grounded. Okay. Oh yeah, switch weapon. Why? Why aren't you going there? I supposedly entered that state. What is this? Condition is, we shouldn't even have that. We don't need that because the system is set up to automatically play those, I think. Maybe that's where we're having a problem. Yeah, we're grounded. Okay. Still grounded. But we shouldn't be. Staff dot grounded. Why won't you work? So frustrating. Okay, what am I doing wrong? I don't know. Should play this animation. Which is an animation. Should go like that, so I should start doing that. I'll have to try a few more things. Okay, I don't know why this thing doesn't want to go into the substate machine for grounded, but I had an idea. Okay, so let's just call this staff grounded, which I don't really want to do this, but whatever. Copy that and let's put it in the base. And I'll just paste it here. So we won't go into the substate machine. Let's change this locomotion to just staff grounded. See if that works. Alright, press the thing. Nope. Still wants to go to grounded. But it says interstate staff grounded. So I'm missing something else. How and why is it getting into this grounded state? Okay, well, I really didn't want to do it this way, but maybe that's just the right way. What I'll do is create an ability called staff locomotion, and then set it to ignore the regular locomotion and see if that works. So let me do it that way. Let's call this staff locomotion ability. Alright, so just gonna third person ability, and using that one. And we really, I think, only need this try enter ability, and we're going to enter the ability based off of the weapon stance equals 1. Hopefully that won't be too repetitive, but animator get integer weapon stance equals to 1. So, I mean, later we will have to do that for each of them. Like if I need to change because there's different animations for rolling with the staff and all that stuff. So I guess I'll need to create all these weapon stance ones. Okay. Let me remove the thing from locomotion that I added, which was overriding this, and get rid of this staff idle thing for now. Okay. And then here we have locomotion. It's set to grounded. It doesn't have that other state, so okay, let's add the staff locomotion ability, and the animation will be to enter the state of staff grounded, and it's fine. And abilities to ignore locomotion. So hopefully that will block regular locomotion while we're in there. And then I guess, yeah, okay, let's just see. So grounded is playing. Switch. Okay. Well, so there we go. I guess that's just the way that it's intended. And if I press I guess I'm not set to ignore. Equip staff is not set to ignore staff locomotion, so I can't do it again, which I guess is okay. But I need to be able to toggle back, and I need to set up the blend tree for moving. And I guess maybe that is good and the way it was intended, because that lets it be more modular. So rather than having a dependency on the animator, I can, other than having the specific state that it matches up with, I can add and remove the staff locomotion ability on there. The regular locomotion ability doesn't have to know anything about weapon stance, and we can handle all of that through these different abilities. But it is just like, it's very vastly different than the other way that I'm more used to, like this RPG animator controller where it's handling all this stuff in the animator. And so all the scripts would have to know about all of these different things. And so maybe that is maybe this way is not good, although it's kind of the standard way, so I don't know. Okay. So in the RPG animator, it's got staff, walk, run, blend that already takes care of this whole thing. So let me just copy that. It relies on animation speed parameter. Hopefully that's not going to break because I don't have that one in this other animator, but let's paste that blend machine in here. Oh, interesting. It added velocity X and velocity Z because those are the parameters it uses inside. Okay, so I need to modify my blend tree to match vertical and horizontal. So velocity X is horizontal, I think. Actually, that's a good question. And vertical. I guess if that doesn't end up working, we'll have to I'll have to remember to flip those. Okay. And then the other thing is, let me just uncheck that animation speed multiplier because that doesn't exist. And then let's copy this staff, walk, run, blend and put that into my staff locomotion. So staff grounded, we'll go into that state. And is this magically going to work? Normal grounded, press T. Oh yes, look at that. Now I'm holding my staff in a combat stance. And forward and vertical, horizontal are obviously not calculated quite the same. So vertical and horizontal do seem to be working correctly, but it's not going fast enough to even make him like walk. Really, he's walking funny. I don't know what that forward is, so we'll have to look at the calculations because they're different, but I got into my blend tree, so that's something. Okay, so I don't need this one, I don't need this one, or this one for now. So I've got this locomotion blend tree working. I need to be able to unequip and return to the normal state. Don't need that in here either. So I've got the the equip animation. Let's find the unequip or sheath, hips, relax. We'll just go with that one. Okay, so I'm gonna just rename this one to unequip for now. So we've got under the staff state, we've got equip and unequip. I think that we need to make the exit transition for this one also in order for the animation to end. Maybe. And then I think we need to go to the equip staff ability and on enter ability maybe that's not where we need to do the weapon stance changing. Maybe we should do that on exit ability, so when it's done, because basically it's just going to be playing the animation. But I think what we need to do is this get enter state override. So we'll have a private string unequip state equals unequip. Maybe I should capitalize that, equip. So that'll be the default. And say here when we get enter state, if the weapon stance, so if the weapon stance is already equal to 1, that means that we want to unequip. Otherwise, it will be the equip state, and then on enter of the ability, I suppose I can still stay here. So basically, let's just say current stance and we will set the weapon stance based on the current stance. So if current stance equals to 1, then if current stance equals to 1, then int next stance equals 1, next stance equals 0, and we'll just set it to the next stance. So if current stance is already 1, then when we come in here, we'll change it to 0 to unequip, and that should make the equip ability do both. And since the other locomotion, the staff locomotion ability, is only entered by weapon stance equaling 1, it should allow me to toggle back and forth. Give it a moment to compile. And let's see if that works. Press T, pull it out, and then Okay, so it didn't work, and that is because the equip state needs to ignore the staff locomotion, I think. Needs to ignore the staff locomotion ability so that it can override it with its trying to enter. And this is one of the reasons that I am not super excited about doing it this way, because it's gonna keep growing. I think there's gonna be, I don't know, like when I have a bow out, it'll be bow locomotion ability, and all of these things will need to do that. So, well, anyway, let's see if it toggles. Press T. I don't know why it does that, but I think it worked. And now I'm back to normal, yeah. So that works. I don't know why the animation gets all weird like that. Maybe because it's not the right relaxed idle animation. It's not blending very well, I guess. But hey, I can switch now between staff and not staff. Well, holy cow, this video, after I've edited all the clips together and cut out all the super bad parts, is still almost 2 hours long. So if you are here at the end of the video and you've stuck with me through the whole thing, first, thank you. And secondly, I hope that you get something out of it. Obviously, I spent a good long time there struggling, where I made a wrong turn, and I realized after editing it that one of the first things that I said was create staff locomotion, but I guess because of my previous ideas about the way the animator works, I tried to do it a different way, which wasn't really the way that the third-party system is designed to work. I think that I need to do some more animator investigation. And I'm still not 100% certain that this third-person system is really the best way to go. There's going to be a lot of components to get all the various states of staff and spells and bows and what have you for Heretic 2. And the other way of doing it would be, instead of having all those components in a game object, they would be all states inside the animator state machine. So I don't know which is better. I mean, I guess on one hand, you do have the ability to have two different characters, and one of them can't use the staff. You can just remove it. But I don't know, there may be simpler ways of doing that. And the other thing that I might also explore is something like Node Canvas, which is behavior trees and finite state machines, basically all one component, and then you could build the whole finite state machine inside of that one component, and split those out into separate assets. And that might be another way to go that The problem with third-person systems is there's probably a million different ways to go, and it might even be best just to not use any system and write your own. Anyway, the video is already long enough, so I am going to stop rambling and save these other thoughts for future videos. If you hate this format, that's fine. Let me know. I mean, in the comments, if you've actually watched this whole thing and you find it useful to see how you can struggle through a problem and get it actually working. Great. Yeah. Until next time. Oh, and do the YouTube things if you want to, like and subscribe and all that stuff.